Hey everybody, Erin Mack back again. We're going to keep covering ground and discovering new things together because the whole point of this channel here is for the purposes of education and entertainment only, obviously. We're not accusing anyone of anything. Everything is alleged. But yeah, so we just started. How is everyone? I hope everyone's having a great day wherever you are. Whatever's going on, I hope that you are blessed and not stressed. And if you are stressed, I know that feeling too. And when I'm stressed, I just pray. That's the only thing I know to do. Which is a kind of a cop-out answer, but I'm sorry. That's that and or Xanax. Those are my two answers. Anyway, so we're reading this book on Kabbalah. Okay. And it has a great deal to do with how current events are playing out right now in the media and in the world at large. Everything that's happening right now has been planned and scripted for, decades, if not centuries. So, I think a lot of the technologies that they act like are so new. I don't think they're new. And I think that, this is not our first time here or whatever. There have been resets. But regardless of all that, I don't know if it's just like power was taken from these people, the Jays that are pretending to be blood Hebrews or what. But I'm very encouraged. A lot of people seem to be waking up. I just hope that like everybody wakes up quick because stuff's going down. It's been going down for decades. I mean, legislation, we're not allowed to criticize them. We're not allowed to say anything because it's anti-Shmometic. There are certain laws on the books, I think maybe in like Texas, I want to say, don't quote me, but that like if you boycott Israel in any way, you cannot do business in certain counties. Like, it is crazy, okay? And this is how they operate. But anyways, this is chapter 2. It's called Satan's Son. And again, this is Christopher John Bjerknes's Beware the World to Come, and it's about Kabbalah. Kabbalah. As, what's his name? Chosi, from the Olive Roots podcast. Shout out to that guy. I love him. Anyways, okay, so it says here that Christianity originally took many distinct forms and was very different from the religion we know today, which has been sanitized through 2,000 years of Gentile influence. Okay, sorry. Let's see. Which has been sanitized through 2,000 years of Gentile influence. Modern Christianity has prohibited many of the original beliefs of Christians who were mostly Jews and has declared them to be heresies. This process started very early on when there were profound disagreements among and between the various churches and church fathers. And I kind of call BS on this. I think this is, there's like an agenda to all lead everybody back to the keeping of like the law of Moses when the New Testament is very clear. There is a law of Christ, okay? And we're supposed to be living in the spirit, not according to the flesh. So, but I am going to say here that Christopher John Bjerknes is going based off what he has learned or what he has been told and what he can find about the Jays and their claims about who they are. And I don't know if he's believing them and taking them at their word, but they are not the same people from even Jesus' time. So, we can't do false equivalencies here. I have to call bullshit out when I see it, even in the books that we're reading. Christian has prohibited many of the original beliefs of Christians who were mostly Jews and has declared them to be heresies. This process started very clearly on when there were profound disagreements among and between the various churches and church fathers, which when they've been arguing since before Jesus even left about stuff, okay? So they've been arguing since day one. Christianity emerged in a Jewish world that was undergoing the throes of a tremendous transition. It wasn't a Jewish world. It was a Greek world, first and foremost. It was a Greco-Roman world, okay? Like, let's not pretend that the Jews are in charge of anything. Okay, so that just BS right there. No, they were not in a Jewish world. They were in a Greco-Roman world. Okay? So, Platonic, if you will. They were in a philosophical era of time where you had, Plato and Aristotle and all these people that had, I don't know if Aristotle came after. I know that Plato was around, though. I know that's for sure. And he had a huge, huge effect on the beliefs and thoughts of people around that time as well. Let's see. But he says here, according to Christopher John Bjerknes, and this is what gets me too about guys like Christopher John Bjerknes and Adam Green from No More News. They are such staunch atheists that they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They're not willing to make distinctions or look at the nuance of what Christians actually believe because they're not Christians and they don't believe. So they're going based off what they're told, what is the established written history of something, which we know who's writing the history and who's been lying about it the whole time. So, like, anyways, and arose during the changing of the ages from Aries, the age of the Jews, to Pisces, the age of the Gentiles. And this is all like other people's opinions, okay? Jewish prophets had long insisted that the Jews surrender their power and religion to Gentiles for 2,000 years as a part of the process of repairing the world and preparing it for the world to come. The Jews had to atone for failing to obey the commandments of their gods. There had to be an agent of accusation, prosecution, and punishment. The idolatrous gods of the Gentiles had to be defeated, and the Jays were too few in number to accomplish that task on their own. And the very idea that there's too few of them to accomplish any task is asinine. Look how many there are of them now in the world. They're like 0.05% of the world population, and yet they control all the money. They control all the media. They control literally everything. And I found it very interesting that he mentioned yesterday in the first chapter that the Jesuits were started by the Jays, because there's been a lot of arguing going back and forth, and I feel like a lot of Christians, they want to try to defend the Jays for some reason. I don't know why, and act like it's the nasty Jesuits that are to blame here. Well, guess who started the Jesuits? The Jays, okay? And then you'll listen to people like Matthew Nolan, who has that Torch of the Tribes channel or whatever, which I used to follow his teachings very, very closely, which he's a Hebrew roots person, which is why I say to people, that are getting sucked into this Hebrew roots nonsense, like, don't do it, bro. Don't do it. And they're all, I mean, even the non-ones, their eschatology is wacky. We have so many wacky beliefs going on in today's Christian umbrella of beliefs, Anyways. And I guess this is according to the Jays, because Christians have never believed that the idolatrous gods of the Gentiles had to be defeated and the Jays were too few in number to accomplish that task on their own. So the Gentiles had to be tricked into destroying their own gods. No, I think more they realize that Jesus is the light of the world. He did come and he did die and he did raise again, and that we should be following him and his example. I think that's just simply what it is. Because, people are still talking about him to this very day. The idolatrous gods of the Gentiles had to be defeated, and the Jays were... okay, we already read that like 4 times. Only then could the Jays be redeemed and enter into the Messianic age of Aquarius with cleansed souls 2,000 years later. Satan and the Gentiles were slated to accomplish all of these tasks for the Jays, who would trick them into doing so. Satan had several divine roles to play in the Judaism that spawned Christianity. Satan was the guardian angel and heavenly prince of princes of the Gentiles. And that's actual BS because Yahweh is the devil and he is the god of the Jays. So what are we even talking about here? See, this guy, he's an atheist. He has no idea what he's talking about on certain points. Like, this is not correct what he's saying. Maybe this is like according to some Jewish person somewhere, you know, that, oh, we started it and blah, 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 blah. Which there are even sects of Christianity, like the Marcionites. They literally like kept like the Gospels and then Paul, like the letters of Paul. And maybe I don't even think he kept Marcion was his name. And he adhered to more of like the Pauline stuff. And everybody's like, oh, Paul was the false apostle. He was the, you know, whatever they try to say about the apostle Paul. It's like, okay, well, if you throw out Paul, you have to throw out this, then you have to throw out that, and then you have no New Testament left. So either you believe this stuff or you don't. But I question, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Israel Anderson's explanation of all this makes the most sense to me, anyways. And it's not so much about the Jews as it is Jesus. Anyways, Satan had several divine roles to play in the Judaism that spawned Christianity. Satan was the guardian angel, the heavenly prince of princes of the Gentiles. Satan was the angel of death who tempted Eve to eat of the tree of knowledge and thereby brought death into the world. That evil was good in that it hastened the repair of the world and the arrival of the world to come. Androgynous Satan was the, quote, parents of all Gentiles. And that's what's wild to me is this projection too, because did they not just say that like they believe that or not we, but all of them are going to have to recreate the world and that eventually everybody's going to be like a multi-gendered Baphomet kind of character? I mean, that's the projection that these people do is literally off the charts. It's like, good luck making sense of all this. Androgynous Satan placed the embryo of Cain into Eve. Okay, yeah, this is like serpent seed doctrine, which is satanic. And I try to tell people about Yahweh, and they try to defend Yahweh's actions in the Old Testament, saying that, you know, oh, the serpent seed and all this. And it's like, well, that still doesn't give you any right to go and just murder people, and just destroy whole people groups, and then keep the little girls for yourselves. That's fucking crazy. So, no, that God is unacceptable. And Jesus literally came, did the opposite, said the opposite. And yet people somehow think that the Old Testament and New Testament are inextricably linked together. And I'm just not seeing that at all. And I really never have in my whole entire life. That Old Testament God just rubbed me the wrong way. And it kind of made me a little like, I don't know. I was like very confused. But it's all kind of starting to make sense now. Because, you know, a lot of this shit they tell you does not make any fucking sense whatsoever. But this, I think, is just according to what Bjerknes has been able to ascertain by probably reading the beliefs of these Kabbalists. Okay, so this is like the world according to the Kabbalists. This is not my point of view, or maybe even Christopher John Bjerknes' point of view. It's probably what he's writing here about what they believe. Okay, so yeah, because it's talking about androgynous Satan placed the embryo of Cain into Eve. Cain's descendants became the evil and much hated Gentiles who constantly tormented the Jays and who worshipped idols, often enticing the Jays to worship these foreign gods. The Jays' god, Yahweh, was jealous of the idolatrous gods, and the Jays were jealous of the Gentiles, meaning that the idolatrous gods and the Gentiles had to be exterminated. No, that's literally not what that was about, really, okay? So, this whole story is already off. Satan, often called Belial or Beliar, was a divine agent of punishment to the Jews. The Wikipedia article Belial states, Belial is sometimes presented as an agent of divine punishment and sometimes as a rebel, as Mastema is. Satan meted out divine punishment to Jays. And this is the thing here that gets me is the word Satan is a title. It's not a name, okay? And it just means adversary. So there can be more than one adversary. And I feel like, Yahweh really acted as their adversary. He admitted in one of the books of the Bible that he creates light and he forms darkness. So, and then, this was my thing, and I've said this before. When Jesus went up to fast and pray before he was crucified, quote unquote, Satan came and offered him all the kingdoms of the world. Well, if Yahweh created the world and it was his, when did he give the world to Satan, right? To offer to Jesus. Like, stuff doesn't make sense once you start to like really read a lot of this stuff. And I'm talking about the Bible stuff. Satan meted out divine punishment to the Jews. Satan was the accuser and prosecutor of the Jews to Yahweh in the divine court. But Satan accepted a scapegoat, which the high priest of the temple gave him every year on the Day of Atonement. And on that day did not accuse the Jays, but instead falsely accused all the Gentiles of all the Jays' sins for an entire prior year. Yahweh believed Satan's false accusations against the Gentiles because Satan was their guardian angel and evidently had no reason to lie. Like this story, I've never heard this side or this Jewish fable part of the story, but this is very interesting to me. The Gentiles thereby became ritual sacrificial animals to Satan and scapegoats for the sins of the Jews. Since when? The Gentiles were all damned to hell, and Jews obtained redemption from all their historical sins through the punishments Satan and the Gentiles inflicted upon them in the age of Pisces, which was the Christian era. That's ridiculous. Okay, first of all, Pisces, the fish, okay? So there's that, which the fish is the symbol, the Christian symbol, okay? And, these Jews, they hate Jesus. They hate him with a passion. So, of course, they're going to act like they were so downtrodden while the Christians were ruling and reigning, But they think now it's their turn, okay? According to their weird prophetic beliefs. Okay, Voltaire famously said, quote, if God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him, end quote. The same is true of Satan. The Jews had no real world Satan to accuse them and provide them with an atonement, so they invented Jesus. I don't think they're going to invent somebody that they hate so much. Knowing all that must be done to complete the transition from the Jewish age of Aries into the Gentile age of Pisces, Jews concocted the Jesus myth and eventually made it the official religion of the Romans. They act like the Jews have so much power, bro. Like they were not that powerful. I mean, this is hilarious to me that they're going to act like, the Hebrews, this little sect of people, were the world power, dominating power for some. No, they weren't. They were constantly being promised to be taken to their own little promised land. When that happened in the book of Joshua, only 2 of them made it. So there's been interbreeding and intermingling with the people of the world. The worship of Baal, okay, Baal is a pagan deity, all right? As is, I'm pretty sure, Yahweh. Okay. They created that legend that Satan and the separated form of Samael and Lilith placed an embryo into a virgin named Mary, just as Satan had placed Cain into Eve. Just as Satan brought knowledge to humanity by tempting Eve to bite the fruit of the tree of knowledge, Satan's son Jesus would come in the guise of the tree of life to seduce Gentiles into worshiping death and the incarnate son of the angel of death, as if death and infertility were instead life everlasting. That's absolutely hilarious because Christians do not believe in any of that bullshit. And the point is not that Jesus died, it's that he rose again. And the reason that he had to die was because of Yahweh's crazy ass fucking laws. Nobody could do it. So Jesus came to do it, to fulfill it, so that the rest of us could be free from this crazy ass law that Yahweh created, right? So the high priest of the temple, Caiaphas, which I think is Peter, faced a terrible dilemma the very year Jesus is said to have either begun or ended his ministry in 30 AD. That year, the ritual sacrifice of the scapegoat on Yom Kippur failed, and the Jews were unable to place their sins on the goat and transfer them to the Gentiles. Not coincidentally, Jesus pledged to become the scapegoat for all the sins of the Jews and save the Jewish nation that very same year. Caiaphas made arrangements for the formal ritual sacrifice of the serpent Jesus, who was to be hung on a wooden pole like the serpent Nehushtan, from which human sacrifice would heal the Jews, scapegoat the Gentiles, and make Jesus the guardian angel of the Gentiles, who would accept all the sins of the Jews in the age of Pisces and transfer them to the Gentiles, just as the scapegoat and Satan had done for generations in the age of Aries on the Day of Atonement. The, quote, everlasting life that Jesus promised to the Gentiles was instead eternal damnation in hell for the transferred sins of the Jews. What a fish story. Like, this is so stupid. And the Bible clearly does not say anything about any of this, okay? This is why it comes from their made-up Kabbalah bullshit. Though the Jews believed that their immortal souls would occupy the world to come here on earth, Olam Haba, Christians were duped into welcoming their immortality in the Greeks' realm of the dead and Hades, Gehenna, where Satan ruled as the king of the damned. Paul declared that Jewish law is a curse, and Jesus became cursed to unburden Christians of the curse of the law. That's right. This is further proof that Jesus was a scapegoat who was cursed to absorb the sins of the Jews who had broken the law. Not just the Jews, but the whole entire world. It very clearly states that Jesus died for the sins of the whole world, okay? He came first to the Jew and then to the Gentile. So, what are we even talking about here? Galatians 3:13, quote, Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us, for it is written, cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree. And that's just a prophecy from like the Old Testament, I think. Christians believe that Jesus was the suffering Messiah. The suffering Messiah was a scapegoat for the Jewish people. Isaiah 53:6. See, yeah. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. Jesus took the place of the Yom Kippur scapegoat from Mark 10:45. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life as a ransom for many. And like I've said before, if there is a ransom, there must be hostages. And that was Yahweh's law of Moses, the law of sin and death, okay? So, Jesus was the sacrificial lamb who took away sin. John 1:29. Yes, these are facts. Quote, the next day John seeth Jesus coming unto him and saith, behold the Lamb of God, which take away the sin of the world. End quote. Notice it says the world, not just the Jews, but they rejected him. And they're going to pay for that. Jesus not only fulfilled his role as scapegoat, transferring the sins of the Jews to the Gentiles, but he, that's bullshit. He transferred all the sins of the Jews and the Gentiles to himself. These Jews are so confused. And this guy is just as confused because that's not what happened here in the Bible, okay? Oh, Lord, this is so annoying. Okay, but he also fulfilled Satan's divine role by accusing the Jews, the high priests, the money changers, the scribes, the Pharisees of disobeying God and breaking the law. No, their own disobedience accused them, okay? With because of the law, there didn't need to be any kind of an accuser. The law was the accuser. Then on the cross, Jesus called upon Satan to forgive the Jews. So you're saying the Most High God is now Satan? I don't think so. Yahweh is Satan. In the same way that Satan would cease to accuse the Jews on the Day of Atonement in exchange for the gift of a heavily sin-laden goat. Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and cast lots. End quote. The Gentiles believed that Jesus was their God because he promised them eternal life, which was in fact eternal damnation, just as he had promised Eve wisdom and seduced her with false promises that cursed humanity with death. Because they teach that the shining one, or the serpent in the Garden of Eve, was Jesus. Israel Anderson thinks that too. I'm not going to go that far. I mean, If you look at it objectively, no, the snake did not cause Eve to do anything. I mean, he tempted her and she made the wrong choice. And then their God that loved them so much, their heavenly Father that loved them so much, cursed them and all the rest of humanity. What a loving guy. Gee, how swell. And then he admits later, when he's talking to the divine council, that the snake told the truth. That's all I'm going to say. I still don't think that the serpent is Jesus. But, I mean, if that's what they think, more power to them. Okay. So, prior to Christianity, the Gentiles did not believe that they were guilty for the sins of Adam and Eve, and that they therefore needed to worship a Jewish man as if a god, so that he would cleanse them of the sins of the Jewish religion and the Jewish people. And that's fairly correct. I'm going to agree with that. What could be more enticing than forgiveness of sins and the promise of immortality? These were the false promises the Jews used to trick the Gentiles into worshiping Satan and abandoning their own gods, which caused these gods to perish, and which not only destroyed the Gentiles' supernatural protection, but damned them to hell. Bro, that's bullshit. Like, because supernatural protection, I wouldn't be here without supernatural protection. I would be dead like 20 times ago. Legit. And there is power in the name of Jesus, okay? So that's just a fact. People get healed, blind see, the deaf hear, the lame walk. I mean, it's still happening today. The Gentiles incorrectly believed that Jesus was their scapegoat, despite the fact that Jesus declared that he was the scapegoat for the Jews and only the Jews, and burdened Gentiles with the sins of the Jews. Prior to Christianity, the Gentiles did not believe that they were guilty for the sins of Adam and Eve, and that they therefore needed to worship a Jewish man as if God. Okay, I already read that. Okay, I already read that. Good grief. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry, the dog wanted to go out. Okay, so let's see. Where were we? These were the false promises the Jews used to trick the Gentiles into worshiping Satan and abandoning their own gods. This is so stupid, okay? Because at this point, whether you worship Satan or some other pagan god, there's no difference, right? There's only one God and one what's the word I'm trying to think of? And one go-between between God and man. One, I can't think of the word. Anyways, it's a Bible verse. Anyways, okay. Satan's son, Jesus, that is so blasphemous. Thereby fulfilled all the divine roles assigned to Satan by the Jews. He even forecast the destruction of the temple, which was a necessary part of the end of the age of Aries and the beginning of the age of Pisces and the, quote, times of the Gentiles. And this all, I feel like, is based off, this bullshit eschatology that C.I. Scofield and John Darby came up with, the dispensations of time and stuff. All this stuff comes from Jewish mysticism, guys. It's not Christian at all. There are no dispensations. A dispensation of grace, a Christian, no, okay? Several branches of Christianity, known as Gnosticism, taught that the painful cycle of birth and death was created by the evil creator god, or the demiurge, Yahweh, the main god of the Old Testament. And God spake to Moses and said to him, I am the Lord, and I appeared to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob by the name of God Almighty, but my name Jehovah, Yahweh, was I not known to them. And it does not say this in the Greek Septuagint. The Gnostic Christians thought that the material world was created by this evil creator god, the demiurge, Yahweh. They believed that there was a higher and benevolent goddess of light and spirit named Barbelo, or Lilith, and that it was necessary for the human soul to escape the material world and migrate to the immortal world, the immortal spiritual world, which is hell. Interesting. In Gnosticism, the supposedly evil god Lucifer became the good god, and the supposedly good creator god Yahweh became the evil god Demiurge. The Gnostics led Christians to believe that it was their divine mission to destroy creation and human life. What are the fucking Jews doing right now, bro? Like, get out. You see the projection and how, like, what a bunch of lying liars there are? Those were Satan's task in traditional Judaism. Yeah, in traditional Judaism. They believe, all their beliefs are upside down and backwards, and they are evil. Their beliefs are evil, allegedly. Okay? The Christians reversed the fundamental tenets of Judaism. The earth and the world to come on earth of the Jays became for the Christians the hell of material creation. Hell itself, a Greek concept, and the damnation of the immortal soul, also a Greek concept, became heaven and everlasting life for the Christian. Satan, the king of the damned, became the spiritual and good God, Yahweh. And good God. Yahweh, the evil demiurge and creator of the material world, became the devil for the Christians. And those Christians are actually finally finding out that Yahweh is the devil. And that he is not the Most High God. So, the Gnostics believed that it was sinful to trap an innocent soul in a body in the corrupt material world, and therefore it was a sin for anyone to have a child. That's crazy. Because, we were told to be fruitful and multiply. Gnostics performed abortions and ate the aborted fetuses as well as semen and menstrual waste, believing them to contain a divine essence in such the same way that Christians today cannibalistically consume the Eucharist. You are what you eat, so if you eat divine flesh, you will become divine and immortal. I've always thought that communion, quote unquote, Holy Communion, was a weird thing, and I think that that's like a church tradition that is weird and probably does not need to be practiced, but who am I to argue with, how many ever 1,000 years of Christian whatever. But who is out here really actually eating people? Their agenda was an extermination agenda that irrationally promised immortal life through the vehicle of death. Immortality was a promise on which they were never obliged to deliver. Death is obviously death, not life, and life is obviously life, not death. Yeah, but now we have everything being upside down, and it's because of these ideas of the Jays. They have poisoned everyone's mind with their propaganda machine, and that's why I've become kind of sus about the Old Testament also. I think probably the most trustworthy is the Greek LXX. Beyond that, I don't trust any Masoretic text because there is so much lies baked into that. Okay. But the Gnostics were nevertheless successful in spreading irrational Christianity to the Romans and ultimately almost all of Europe. Well, no, I don't think so, because Gnosticism was not, it's not the prevailing belief system now, is it? No, it's not. Okay, they tricked Gentiles into welcoming and insisting upon their own ultimate destruction and the destruction of the earth. Those were Satan's goals. Thomas's sayings of Jesus 3:7 preached the exterminationist androgyny agenda, which alleges that humans were originally androgynous and must return to an androgynous state in order for the end time to mirror the beginning of time, and in order for order to be restored out of chaos, tohu, and the world to come, Elohim equals gods. Yes, Thomas's sayings of Jesus, I'm sorry, but that's not canon. That's bullshit. Elizabeth asked him, Master, why has this woman been made unequal with man? And Jesus said, I tell you the truth, Elizabeth, when I say that in the beginning the Elohim created mortals, male and female. They were one body, perfectly united and absolutely equal. Through the fall came disparity, and under the fall there must always be division and disharmony and inequity. Only when you are redeemed from the fall will male and female cease to exist, for you become a perfect whole, accomplishing a single work. Only then will the purpose of the parents be accomplished in the renewal of the physical realm. It is for this reason that I make the female male and the male female, so that you may be in the physical realm as the parents are in the heavenly realm, end quote. I'll take things that Jesus most certainly did not say for 1,000, Alex. The androgyny agenda is also found in the book of Enoch 6:7. Which one? Because there's like 4 of them. Quote, I stood in their presence, trembling at their majesty, but one of them spoke to me. Approach us, Enoch, he instructed, and hear our holy word. Then I was lifted up and approached their seat of power, but I hardly dared look at them. One of them spoke to me again. Look at us, Enoch, she said, for we are the Elohim, male and female, even as we have begotten mankind in our own likeness. But this is the great secret, Enoch. We are not different from each other, but different manifestations of the same reality. The Elohim are Elohim. They may appear to you to be male or female, but if they but if they were either, they would be halves, not whole, and wholeness is the attribute of deity. The Elohim are not male or female, but Elohim. The sanctified are not male or female, but sanctified. All of mankind are incomplete as long as they view themselves as male or female, for half of their reality is veiled from them. You must see beyond the illusion of separateness to the essential oneness of being in order to perceive truth. Until then, you cannot relate in a proper manner with the rest of creation. Look at us, Enoch, and perceive truth. And they opened up to me a great mystery, and I saw the meaning of what I had heard. Yeah, that's not an Enoch 1. I've read Enoch 1, and that shit did not happen in Enoch 1. And that's the only one that could possibly remotely even be considered to be canon. The rest is Gnostic bullshit. And Gnosticism is also bullshit, okay? The androgyny agenda is also found... Okay, hold on. The apocryphal Gospel of Thomas has Jesus teaching the androgyny agenda. Jesus saw some babies nursing. He said to his disciples, these nursing babies are like those who enter the Father's kingdom. They said to him, then shall we enter the Father's kingdom as babies? And Jesus said to them, quote, when you make the two into one, and when you make the inner like the outer, and the outer like the inner, and the upper like the lower, and when you make the male and female into a single one, so that the male will not be male or female be female, then you make eyes in the place of an eye, and a hand in place of a hand, a foot in the place of a foot, an image in the place of an image, then you will enter the kingdom. Bullshit. That is nonsense. Gospel of Thomas. And people like Aaron Abke are out here advocating that people read that garbage. Okay. Simon Peter said to them, make Mary leave us, for females don't deserve life. And Jesus said, look, I will guide her to make her male, so that she too may become a living spirit resembling you males. For every female who makes herself male will enter the kingdom of heaven. End quote. Things that Jesus never said for 2000, Alex. Like, what a bunch of bullshit this is. The Gnostic saga of Sophia and Christ, 1:6-9 and 6:5, iterates the androgyny agenda. Samael equals Satan. Yeah, this is all Jewish in its origin, okay? All of this is Jewish, okay? Because even then, right, the Gnostics were Jays as well, were they not? So they just went off in another crazy direction. And all of this is based on their Talmud and their Zohar or whatever. Because the Bible doesn't say any of this. So Christopher John Bjerknes and you know, Adam Green does the same thing. They don't recognize the nuance of what actual Christians believe and what Gnostics believe, and there's a whole mess of confusion here. And I don't think these guys quite get it because they're atheists, and why would they get it? You know. Okay. So so this is from the book, The Gnostic Saga of Sophia and Christ. 1:6. Lord, if you are the Son of Man, have you no mother? Asked Matthew. 1:7. This is what I desire to show you, replied the Redeemer. The man of holiness is the great androgynous progenitor. He is father and mother. In him is no division. In him is no lack. He encompasses the whole. He begot me, his only begotten son, but I am not whole without my sister. She is Sophia, my sister, my consort, my female half. This is all blasphemous bullshit. And when he says that like the Jews made up some shit surrounding Christianity, they didn't make up Jesus, but they made up all this bullshit surrounding him, saying that he said stuff that he never said. Jesus didn't say any of this. I don't believe this for a second. I call bullshit on the fact that Jesus did not say any of this, okay? In him is no lack. He encompasses the whole. He begot me, the only begotten son, but I am not whole without my sister. She is Sophia, my sister, my consort, my female half. When we are united in one, then we are whole like our parents, but when we are separated, we are incomplete. Like the Adamah, who became separated into male and female to produce mortal children, that which has been divided must be united into a perfect unity for the realm of the Elohim to be established. Nonsense. 1:8. That which occurred among the Adamah was a reflection of that which had occurred in the celestial realms. For just as the Eves were led to separate from the Adamah, leaving the atoms truncated in the Garden of Eden, my consort Sophia was seduced by the reflection of her own light to separate from me and descend into realms of darkness. I tried to hold her, but so great was her love of herself that I could not. Only when she had severed the cord which bound us together did she discover that she had been deceived, for she had thought that she was moving deeper into divine light, when she was actually moving away from it toward the reflection of her own light. When she discovered her error, she found that she was totally alone for the first time in her existence, surrounded by darkness and chaos. Out of her fear and loneliness, she drew from her mind the image of her consort, the Christ. And in this place of darkness, this image took on a form of life of its own, a life drawn from its mother. But it was not the Christ, it was the projection of its mother's mind, originating in the darkness where she dwelled. Yeah. Seems legit. 1:9, quote, this Lord of darkness proceeded to produce lesser reflections of itself until it was surrounded by many others. Quote, I am God, declared the Lord of darkness. Quote, there is no other God but me, and you are my angels. So caught up in his arrogance was he that he did not even acknowledge his own mother, but she perceived him, and she spoke through the mist surrounding him. You lie, Samael, which means blind God, for there are many greater than you. Nevertheless, the Lord of darkness ignored her voice, although it caused him and his angels to tremble with fear when they heard it. I hope they're not trying to say Jesus is the angel of darkness, because he's the one that has command over all the demons. Like, they fear him. 6:5. I have descended to ignite a fire in this world, a fire that will consume mortal nature and transform humanity into divinity. Whoever is near to me is near to the fire, but whoever is far from me is far from the realm of my parents. Only I can lead you to the fire, and only I can lead you through the fire until you are sanctified, so that you can be one with me and my parents. Then you will no longer be anthropos, for you will have become divine anthropos, whole and androgynous like your parents, who are in the heavenly realm, end quote. I mean, why are we reading Gnosticism? Gnosticism is not Christianity, okay? None of us believe any of this fucking bullshit. The Gnostic book of the Generations of Adam 1:1 also preaches the androgyny agenda. Yeah, this is Gnosticism. It doesn't have any fucking thing to do with actual Christianity. When the Elohim organized mortals, they organized them in the semblance of the Elohim. They organized them in the image of their own body, male and female, and blessed them, calling them by the name Adama, which is interpreted as first blood, or the first mortals having blood in their veins. So they were called the Adama at the time they were organized as living souls on the earth, the footstool of the Elohim. Another allusion to, or alluding to, the fact that it's flat, baby. The Gnostic book of the Great Invisible Light describes the gods as androgynous, quote, parents of Adam and Eve. Gnostic theology reversed the written law of the Old Testament Judaism, such that when the Gnostics refer to the female demon Lilith and the male demon Samael, who are the separated forms of androgynous Satan and Judaism, Gnostics are speaking of Judaism's Shekinah, the female goddess, and the Holy Spirit of the Old Testament, and of Yahweh, the male god of the Old Testament, in a pejorative way, as if they are the separated forms of Satan. And when the Gnostics refer to their, quote, parents, they are talking about Lilith and Samael, Satan of Kabbalah, in a good way, because they are the Gnostics' good gods who gave humanity knowledge and eternal life over the objections of evil Yahweh. The Gnostics call the androgynous creator god Yahweh Shekinah of the Old Testament the demiurge, and conceived of him as Satan. On the other hand, the Satan of Judaism is a good god for the Gnostics, just as the good gods of the Jews are Satan to the Gnostics. See how they try to play this fucking as above, so below, as is left, so is right fucking bullshit? It's such bullshit. Okay. Whereas the Old Testament makes the male god Yahweh the chief and good god, Gnosticism makes the goddess Barbelo Lilith the main and good goddess, again reversing things from male to female and making as seen through the lens of Judaism, evil into good, because female is of the evil left side in Judaism. This can all be a bit confusing, but it is necessary to understand that Judaism and Gnosticism are reversals of one another, such that the same Samael represents exactly the opposite figure in Gnosticism that it does in Judaism, though it consistently signifies an evil enemy force. The characters which Judaism calls evil, the Gnostics call good, and vice versa. Yahweh for Jews becomes the evil demiurge for Gnostics. No, his fruit makes him an evil demiurge, okay? Commanding the Israelites to just go kill as many people as they can. Like, this is crazy town. All right, so I'm going to stop at the end of this little mini paragraph. Yahweh for the Jews. Okay, they said the satanic Samael of the Jews becomes the good Jesus of the Gnostics. Gnostics consider the Jews to be Satan worshippers, and the Jews considered Christians to be Satan worshippers. So, but they all want to sit here and circle jerk and pretend like, oh, we believe the same thing. I mean, Judeo-Christian. When literally one has nothing to do with the other. And that is why I kind of feel like the Old Testament needs to just be, like, get rid of it. It's adding too much confusion. Christians are thinking that they have to go back and follow a law that was never written to them or for them. Anyways, I'm going to be done with this for now, and I'll see y'all in the next one.